Now, I'm sure you've heard of the term intermittent fasting, or maybe also called time restricted eating. And I just want to talk about this for a while, because this is something that is very popular. There's lots of benefits for intermittent fasting, so it's a useful tool that we have for different reasons. But one of the biggest reasons that people find it so attractive is because it's weight loss benefits, and its tool is something that can help you lose weight, which a lot of people at this age really struggle with weight gain, and therefore become quite determined to try and lose weight by any means possible. And time restricted eating or intermittent fasting can seem really simple because we just stop eating. But I want to have a chat about this because it's not always something that's a great thing to do for women at this stage of our lives. And I just want to give you some context about that why, so you can make a more informed decision about whether that is something that is good for you or right for you at the moment, okay? So intermittent fasting really sort of hit the mainstream when Dr. Michael Mosley did the 5-2 diet. And the 5-2 diet, if you remember, was based on the idea of eating normally for 5 days a week, and then on 2 days a week you had 500 calories, which meant you were mimicking a fast day because it was so low calories, it was practically fasting, and your body did the same things. A lot of people lost a lot of weight from that, got a lot of headlines. Another version of that is the idea that you have a restricted eating window. So that might mean every day you only eat between 10 o'clock and 6 o'clock at night, okay? Which would mean you had an eating window of 8 hours and then a fasting window of 16 hours. Again, in that, people tend to naturally eat less, eat fewer calories. And when you're not eating for a long period of time, your body is also going to go into more of a fat burning mode. So you're eating fewer calories and your body is spending more time in fat burning mode, and that's how it works. Sounds great, doesn't it? Sounds simple, except one of the things that we just need to be mindful of as women is the idea that we are going to put ourselves in a constant chronic state of restricting calories too much, okay? To the point where we can be in a state called low energy availability. And it's more common than you think it is. You know, women, if you've touched on this in some of the other videos, you know, we can have this cultural thing that we should not be eating very much or eating very tiny meals. And the sort of fasting idea or the mentality of that really moves into that, you know, we almost feel like it's a badge of honor to not need food or not have to eat. And if you sort of go too far with that, you can really find that you chronically undereat. And that is really going to create a lot of damage in your body, because if you're going to lose a lot of weight and quickly, you're going to lose a combination not just of fat, but also significant amounts of muscle. And in some instances, you can be losing as much muscle as you are losing fat. And that is a complete disaster area for midlife women who are already having to sort of cope with the idea of, you know, fight a battle against losing muscle. If we're putting ourselves in this very extreme calorie restricted state, then we will just lose a lot of muscle, and it's going to be very hard to get that back, okay? Now, the other thing that time restricted exercise, that sounds better actually, doesn't it? More appealing. That intermittent fasting can do is also put us under a lot of stress. And you don't need me to tell you, you know, this is a time of our life where we can be under phenomenal amounts of stress, and that's just because of our lives, not because of our menopause. Menopause absolutely can just turn the dial up and give in a few other stress things to cope with that we really don't need. And a cruel irony is the fact that menopause can also reduce our ability to cope with stress. So, you know, all of that on its own can make this a tough time of your life. If you are feeling stressed, if you're feeling overwhelmed, you know, if you're just sort of feeling low on energy, exhausted, you know, burnt out, all of those things that can happen at this time of your life, trying to exist on a intermittent eating schedule is really probably something that you want to avoid like the plague, because that is only going to put you under even more stress. I know when I was younger, I dabbled, as I've dabbled in most diet related things, but did some time restricted eating and intermittent fasting myself, and I really enjoyed it. You know, I'm someone who eats a lot and likes eating, and I found it just was really simple for me just to eat 2 meals a day and not think about it. Great. But as I've got into my sort of late 40s and early 50s, I really cannot do it anymore. And it really just feels too difficult and too stressful for me to try and coast through large parts of the day without eating. And I did an experiment not so long ago where I did do it for a few weeks and tracked my body composition, and I lost weight, but I lost muscle, and that was while I was training. So, you know, it's really something that is not a great thing for us to feel that we should be using right now. There are better things and more effective things that we can be using, dietary interventions, that can help us stabilise our energy and help us feel better, more energetic, sleep better, have energy for exercise, than trying to coast along on the minimum possible. Okay, so I just want you to think about that. You may also have heard or read about studies that suggest if you exercise fasted, that you burn more fat, and that's absolutely true if you're a man. There's no benefit to women when they've done these studies there's no benefit to women to exercise fasted at all. So that's something, again, that's important to know about these things, and to know that the data can be different for men versus women. So, and one of the things that I have also noticed in my gym, and that I just sort of want to flag up here, is that you want to feel that you've got good energy for exercise. Because if you haven't eaten, or if you haven't eaten for a long time, so say you've had lunch and you're working out at 6 o'clock after work, you can be so down on energy that you just can't do a good workout, and you're just about going through it. That's just not going to help you get good results from that exercise at all. So you want to make sure that you're eating well enough so that when you do come to exercise, you're full of energy and you can have a great workout and a great session. That's important. We're going to talk about that again. Okay, so I wanted to put that out there because I don't want you to feel like you have to jump on all these bandwagons, and that fasting, with all the amazing things that you read about it and all the people who are really sort of pro it, that you should be doing if it doesn't feel right for you. And also, if you do try it, I'm going to just give you some options here to make sure you're not just using it as an excuse to really, really have a very low calorie diet 24/7. Okay, so one of the things to think about, or not one of the things, how to think about it if you still feel like it's something that you want to try, okay, or would work well for you. Well, first thing to think about is that depends on where you are with your diet at the moment, all right? So what I would recommend, if you feel that you don't necessarily eat particularly well now, you don't eat your 3 nutritious meals a day, you have a lot of snacks, you have a lot of carbs, as in sort of the not so good carbs, I would start by eating your 3 nutritious meals a day and starting to change the proportion of the meals that you're eating. So you've got more protein, you've got more veg, and you're starting to taper back on carbs. Having bigger meals so you don't have to snack in between meals, and can get from breakfast to lunch to dinner fairly easily because you're eating really well. Because remember, when you don't snack, you're giving your body, that's like a mini fast in the day. If you can go for 4 or 5 hours between meals, that's like a mini fast anyway. And you're giving your body a longer time to go into fat burning mode between meals by having good nutritious meals that tide you over to the next meal. Okay, so that's a better place to start. Get your normal meals under control, create some healthier changes and some better routines around that before you start to introduce the idea of intermittent fasting. Next thing to think about is, don't go all in and go into this sort of extreme eating windows for 8 hours or 6 hours. again, there's data now and research that suggests that men do okay on really long fasting windows like 16 and 18 hours. Women don't. So the optimum time for women is around 14 hours, which, if you think about it, is actually quite easy to achieve. So that would mean, on the spot now for my maths, if you had your breakfast at 7 o'clock in the morning and you would eat your evening meal at 5 o'clock, that gives you 14 hours, does it? 7 and 7, yeah, that would give you 14 hours of not eating. But to begin with, you could just start with a 12-hour eating window. That still is classified as time restricted eating, or an intermittent fast, if you have a 12-hour eating window and a 12-hour fasting window. So you'd have your breakfast at 7, eat normally throughout the day, last meal is at 7 o'clock in the evening, but after that it means nothing. No wine, no tea with milk in, it's just water. Water, or I'd say black tea or coffee, but you don't want to be having that at night anyway. And that's something that you could look at. You also don't have to do it every day, okay? You don't have to do it, you could just do it 2 or 3 times a week. Again, we can sort of get into the routine of putting such a strict set of rules and regulations around what we're trying to do, and going down the most extreme rule first, that we feel if we're going to do intermittent fasting, it has to be a daily thing. Even if you can do it 1, 2, 3 days a week to begin with, and gradually build up. And then the last thing I just want to talk about, because I meant to say at the beginning and I forgot, there is actually a difference between intermittent fasting and time restricted eating. Intermittent fasting tends to mean that there's some sort of calorie restriction involved, which means you're eating fewer calories than your body needs, okay? Time restricted eating by contrast means that you are eating your normal meals and your normal calories, but just within a shorter time frame. So that's really where you want to be thinking about, because even time restricted eating can be helpful in helping to lose body fat, even when you're eating your normal amount of calories, or you're eating your 3 healthy meals a day. That can still be beneficial. But the key thing that you want to be doing first is thinking about minimizing the stress that you're putting yourself under, and 2, working to stabilize your energy levels and get some really good healthy eating habits going on that help you to do that stabilize that energy, that reduce the cravings, that start to make you feel good. Okay, I'm sure that's something that you'll want to talk about, but as always, drop me a line. All right, see you in the next video.